A very good morning to our lecturer, Dr. Ken, and all my fellow students. My name is Guan Xing Yi, and these are my team members. They are Chong Yi-yong, Ko Bun Seng, and Jin Ying-en. Today, we are going to present to you guys about staying motivated, organized, and on track. So, this chapter looks at a big issue on how to make sure that you can succeed in your courses. So today, you have been motivated to start your college, and you have to keep this motivation going on as you target your specific goal for success in your classes. Okay, this is the content that we are going to present to you guys. There are setting and reaching goals, and organizing your space and time, and lastly, we will share and chapter activities with you guys. So, all of this, the most importantly is the time management. Time management is something that you need to know about yourself, what you want, and manage yourself, and decide how to get what you want in order to achieve your goals in your college. Okay, before I start my presentation, I would like to share two stories with you. And the first story is about Juan. He is a working adult. He worked for several part-time jobs since he graduated from his secondary school, and he's so stressed and tired all the day. He started to sign up for the courses that he likes in the evening. So basically, he works in the day and went to study in the evening, and he has no any other time to spend with his family. He has a widowed mother. Her mother wished him to accompany him all the time, so he need to skip his class sometimes to accompany her mother. And as you can see from the picture, he's feeling tired. And the other story is about Becky. She is a college student, and she is recently being elected as the president of her sorority club. She thinks that she will dedicate most of her time in the club because she feels that she can learn some social skills that cannot be learned in class. And she successfully managed her time, graduated from her college, and did a great job in her sorority club. So, with these two stories, we can say that time management is important in our life. And if you want to effectively to reach your goal, you need to manage your time successfully. The first subpoint I'm going to present to you guys is setting and reaching goals. Some people are goal-oriented. They know what they want, and they can decide their decision, what they do to achieve to their goals. But some of them, they are kind of person like go with the flow and just accept what life gives them. And due to this problem, there's a number of people didn't reach their goals of graduating. And now I would like to present to you guys how to list out your goal. As a student, we will have desires, hopes and dreams, plans and schemes, and also maybe we think of what to do in our future. And also you might be involving in a romantic relationship and so on. And all of these are your goals. You have to list it down in 3 categories, which is short, middle, and long-term goals. And your goals have 4 characteristics, which is realistic. Relate your goal to your ability and strength, and you can achieve it easily. And secondly is specific. List down your goal in a specific way, in more details. For example, you write down your goal as you want to work in Xiamen University, but that is not specific enough. You need to write, you want to be a lecturer in Xiamen University, and also followed by time frame. Set a time frame for your goal. If not, you will not done when you are in 60 or 70. And finally, the most important thing is work hard. There's a saying, we say that there's no free lunch in the world. So you need to work hard to achieve your goal, and don't ever give up when you encounter problems. After you are listing down your goals, next come with priorities. Setting priorities is an attitude or a habit, which is similar with habit 3, Put First Thing First by Stephen Covey. Priorities always involve time. You need to do what is the most important to do right now. After you are listing your goal, try to rank your goal in number 1, number 2, and number 3, and so on. And you need to know the most important and urgently you need to do is the thing you can lead you to success. And you can manage your time with this habit effectively. Next is about attitude. Everything you do is start with your attitude. Whether you wake up in the morning and how you treat your life. Attitude is something. It's all about one personality, upbringing, and past experience. It can be changed in the future. If you are committed to a goal, you can learn to adjust your attitude. So, how do you going to change your attitude in order to succeed? First, be more upbeat with yourself. Try to say something positive to you. For example, you did poorly in the test and you get a really bad marks for the test. And are you going to blame yourself, keep on regretting? Or are you going to study more harder and work harder in order to obtain a higher marks in the next test? And don't oftenly mix up with negative people, because I believe that social relationship and friendship could influence your attitude and it really be contagious. And the next point is overcome fears. How do you change your attitude to overcome your fears? Most of us in college, we have a fear of failure. We are scared to fail in our exam. So what you need to do is you need to spend more time in it, work harder, get more preparation before your exam, and it will change your attitude in it. Next, you need to stay focused and motivated all the time. So let's say tomorrow you have a test. So what are you going to do today? Are you going to play games or are you going to study? And we know that life is full of interruptions and changes. Can you try to study without the phone in the room? Even I cannot do it also. So I would like to share some tips with you on how to get focused and motivated. First, you need to say it aloud. Tell your friend that you are going to study in 1 hour later. Make a commitment to your friend and affirm that it will be true. And second is focus on the here and now. Focus what are you doing now. You're studying, you study. You're walking, you walk. Focus on what you are doing. Don't think of what I'm going to have it for lunch or what. That are distractions. And thirdly, break the task into small and multiple pieces in order for you to achieve it easily. And the next one is imitate successful people. We can learn by observing people, by walking. You learn from your parents. That is why our lecturer, Dr. Ken, showed us a few of successful people video. I think the point is for us to imitate them and learn their strategy how to be success. And lastly is important thing done first, which is the habit that I said in the last slide. And the next one is networking with other students. College students think that they feel better and more enjoyable to study in a group with friends before a test. In a group study, you can quiz each other before a test in order to ensure that you will understand more about the course material. And besides, learning to study and work with other students can also improve your social skills and communicating skills. Because the world today, in business world today, there's no individual task for you. It's all about cooperation with others to achieve a mission or goal. And the last point I want to tell you is solving problems and overcome setbacks. We know that life is full of problems, even though you have a clear goal and you are being motivated all the time. And these are the three problems that we can see in our life. The first problem is a financial crisis. What if your parents suddenly cannot afford you to study in your university? So are you going to quit your study, or are you going to work for part-time? And the other situation is illness or injury. There's an experience of one of my friends. She is being involved in a car accident for 1 year, and she is still under recovering. She made a choice of postpone her study for 1 year. And the lastly is stress. For students, there are basically only two stress for us is relationship stress and study stress. Relationship stress means like you have problems with your family, friends, or maybe your girlfriend or boyfriend. So how do you want to overcome those problems? And this is what I have analyzed. The first thing, you need to stay motivated and focused all the time and analyze the problem. Find out what causes this problem. Find the key of the problem. And after that, if you cannot solve your problem, you need to seek for help. You can talk to your family, friends, or even you can go for a counseling session. And lastly, make a plan. Follow a plan to solve your problem. And with this way, you will solve your problem more effectively. And that is all my presentation about. And I will prepare 2 questions for you guys. Goals should be realistic. And the second question is, priorities is similar to which of the habits that stated by Stephen Covey? Is habit 3, putting first thing first. Thank you. This is all my presentation, and I will pass to my team member.
Good morning to Dr. Ken and my fellow classmates. And thanks to my teammate Singi, who just showed us how to motivate ourselves in college life. I would like to move to the next step, which is organizing your space. This is a very important skill because you can use this skill when you join the real world after college. Before we start, let's ask ourselves why we should organize our space. We use space for different purposes. We have space for a stranger, a friend, and a lover. So that's because we always complain about not having enough time to do things, but we almost never complain about not enough space. Because the main problem we have with space is not about the quantity, but the quality. There is no when you are in your own space, you feel more secure and in control. Space also have a power to trigger some habits for you. For example, when you sit on the bed long enough, you will eventually want to lie down even if you are not tired at the beginning. This is how space affects your behavior and your actions. So choosing the right space is important to build your right studying habit. Also, different space create different moods. For example, a place can be very uplifting and cheerful for you and put you in a good mood. That place may be suitable for hanging out with friends and have a party, but it will be a disaster if you try to make it a studying place because it will make it hard for you to concentrate. And the opposite is, if a place is very dark and joyless and make you sad in a way, it's even worse to make it into a study place because the last thing you need is to relate studying with something depressing. So, we must always be careful when we're choosing our study space. If you think a different place will give you a different mood, this is an example that the same place can give you a different mood under different conditions. Let's start with the room on the left. When you look at the room on the left, what do you see? Some might think you see mess, chaos, and dirty. And some of you may even go to the extreme and say this owner is in a total mess himself or herself. Now we move to the room number 2. You can see it is quite clean and tidy. And you might relate the owner to being someone very disciplined and doing things smooth all the time. And later on, I will share with you some method to tidying our own space for ourselves. So what are the steps we should do to organize our space? First is to make sure the place you choose does not associate with other activities such as eating, watching television, and sleeping. And when you pick a spot solely for studying and do it over and over again, eventually when you enter this space, it will make you go into a study mode like a plane on an autopilot. So your study space also should meet your study needs. If you need to write things while studying, you should find a place with a table. And if you use laptop, obviously you should find a place with power outlet nearby so you don't have to look for one when the battery is low. And your study space should also meet your psychological needs. And for those who live with roommates and your family members during the weekends, you may need support from other people to maintain your study habit, the study space. Put up a do not disturb sign on your door if you need to. You should also always keep your space tidy and neat so you don't spend any time on your study hours to clean your study space, which is very counterproductive. And even though we are very motivated to study, we can't do it continuously for hours. It's actually very bad for our health. So we should always plan for breaks once in a while. But we also should remember that this break should not be carried out within your study space because this study space is for building your studying habit. So I would suggest that when you are taking breaks, walk away from your study space, and when you are done, you can come back so you can use this space mainly for studying only. Unless you are studying in the middle of nowhere, there's a chance a friend may pass by and interrupt your study session. It's even greater chance for that when you're at home with families or in a dorm room with friends and roommates. So you should always have a plan for this kind of situation so it does not caught you off guard. Now let's just move to the biggest distraction of our time, the technology. As I can see, some of you are maybe even looking at your phone right now. I understand because I do it sometimes too. So we may like to think ourselves as being great at multitasking. But the truth is when we are trying to focus our attention from one thing to another, we actually waste some time. And that time add up can amount to hours per week. And this habit also sometimes affect how our brain works. If our brain are already used to short attention span, when we do need to focus long hours and focus 100%, we often find ourselves very hard to achieve that. That's why even some people can't finish their meal without looking at their phones. So if you start now and change your habit, maybe 1 hour without looking at phones, the next time you find it easier to do for 2 hours straight and 3 hours, and eventually you even find yourself not looking at your phones while having a break. What about music while studying? Some may argue that they study better when there's a background music, and some may need total silence. It really depends on you, on your own preference. If the basic rule is if you are listening wholeheartedly to a music that you like, you're probably not doing much studying. So if that happens, change it up to something else or consider dropping it altogether. In Xiamen University, more of us are living with a roommate who are from different backgrounds. Living with roommate can be fun, but it can be also problematic when we are trying to study. What we should learn is to find a sweet spot where both of parties are satisfied but still maintaining a good relationship. We can agree with our roommate that the hours we need to study, and everybody try to keep it down during that hour. In my case, me and my roommate both get an eye mask so that we can still sleep soundly when the other one is staying up late for his study. And this also applies to at home. You should always find your own place that are off limit to other family members so that you can be focused when you need to. And what happens if your roommate are trying, or your other friends are trying to talk to you constantly and it affects your study? From Dr. Harvey, what we learn is to just say no. No and no. It's a simple word, but you should say it politely and nicely because eventually you want to remain friends with your roommate too. And it's all how you improve your interpersonal communication skill. So now I would like to share with you a tidy method introduced by a Japanese tidying consultant named Marie Kondo. This method in a way involves first 3 habits from Dr. Covey's 7 habits. In habit 1, Dr. Covey talked about be proactive, and tidying a room can be a task you can be proactive at while still having a big influence on your life. In habit 2, Dr. Covey talked about begin with an end in mind. Just like what this method stresses, that we should visualize the room that we want and what we want to do in that room in our everyday lives. For example, some people may want to do yoga every day in their room, and you can't do that with mess all around you. In habit 3, Dr. Covey talked about put first thing first. And the Marie Kondo method asks us to keep what we want and not what to throw away. We're holding each item you possess in your hands and ask if it sparks joy. She suggested that we start with clothing because that's the item that we are most familiar with, and to feel if it sparks joy on ourselves. Then you move on to your books and your other items. This technique is quite handy when you try to keep your life as efficient as possible. You can Google the Marie Kondo method if you are interested, and I believe it will lead you to an effective lifestyle. So these are the questions that I prepared for a quiz. According to the Marie Kondo method, what kind of objects should we keep? Those objects that are spark joy. And the second is why organizing space is important for college success. Because we all need our own space, and the physical space reinforces habits and different place create different moods. The last, you should scold your roommate angrily when he's disturbing your study session. Of course, it's false. I'll be very much concerned if you choose true. So next, I'll pass to my teammate, Bunseng, for the next part.
Good morning once again to the Professor Dr. Kent, my fellow teammates and all the classmates. Before that, since my previous teammates already shared about the ways, the steps to organize the space, now let us move on to organize our time. In my opinion, I think that this part is the most difficult for myself and all of the students. I take myself as an example. Before I sleep, I tell myself that in the next day, I need to wake up early to do studies. Sounds motivated, right? Yes, I success in early wake up. But suddenly, there is a sound inside my head say, please sleep more 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. Because you are feeling tired, you're not sleep enough. Then I see the alarm, still early, then I go back to sleep. And there is not only 5 minutes. But I wake up, 1 hour's gone. So, this part is important. However, I still have to share with all of the students about the way to organize the time. Because nowadays, people always keep complaining about the time is not enough. Maybe 24 hours is already insufficient for most of the students and most of the working adults also. Because as the time flows without any notifications, just as we say that time is tight for no man. And what is left is only the regrets and the complaints. Therefore, learning the time management is a must for us so that we can cope up with a lot of the jobs or the tasks we need to get done. Now, here is the pie chart, or the title is that the college students' average use of the time in most of the university students. Okay, based on this pie chart, we can see that most of the students, they spend their time in sleeping, and the second most is leisure and sports. For me, the pie chart is also approximately the same. Maybe just the sleeping part will be getting bigger. And we can see that the students spend less time in working and related activities compared to the sleeping and the leisure. Therefore, in order to make ourselves more efficient in carrying out our jobs, we need to switch these pie charts. How to switch this kind of the pie chart? So before I just share with you, let us move on to the time and the personality first. Okay, how you arrange your times can reflect how character you are. I really agree this kind of the point. For example, if you are yourself that you think that you are very good or very excellent, you give yourself a high expect. Or maybe you will always feel anxious and depressed as the time will keep flowing. As the time flows, we always keep looking your watch about the time flows. And however, if you are really a relaxed attitudes and you not account how your time flows, and there are some people that have the different reactions in their schedule change. For example, they're feeling upset as the time flows, they cannot finish their work in a given time, or just go with the flow, and they will say, never mind, I will maybe just spend more 1 hour or like that to continue the jobs until you getting done. Or maybe you just ignore it, you just keep doing your work until the time pass away, you don't know. So, we need to learn the time management instead of change our time personality. We cannot just change from ignore it to become upset. It is no use. Because the important thing is that we still unable to manage our time efficiently. So changing our character towards our time doesn't mean that we cannot manage our time very well. So here's are the few factors that we need to consider in manage our time. There is a lot of the point here, and the contents inside is exactly the same. You determine how much time you need to spend, and you need to do some effective strategies, or you schedule your times in a realistic segment and set priorities and stay motivated, just like my teammates already mentioned before. The goal of the setting this time management is to actually get 3 hours of the study done in exactly 3 hours, and have time for your other's life or your other social activities. That sounds good. And now is the strategies for your, since you have your better time management, now let us move forward the strategies for your success studies, and prepare to be successful. Before you plan to study certain course or a certain subject, you place yourself in your right, you give yourself a high encouragement. You think that you will be success in the end, or without getting a failure. That is a good start, because you have a good start, it will give you a lot of the encouragement for you to continue your studies. And use your best and most accurate of the time of the day. Based on the research, we know that the memorizations, the skill of memorization is most efficient in the morning section. Therefore, I suggest that the students can use the morning time. If you do not have any class you need to attend or activities, you use the morning time to study some subjects which requires a huge of memorizations. It will help you to memorize your things more efficient. And next, break up the large projects into the small piece. It's easier to get going if you break up your large projects into the small pieces. Then you schedule at the separate times, and begin with the first sections that requires maybe just only 1 hour or 2 hours. And if you have troubles to getting started, do an easier task first. By starting with an easier task can give you a momentum to continue to the more difficult task. And if you are feeling overwhelmed and stressed because you have too much to do, try to revisit your schedule. If you are feeling stressed out because you have a lot of the things to do, try to visit your schedule again and do some adjustments so that the time suits for you, and don't try to make yourself in the trouble situation. And besides that, if you are really floundering, you talk to someone and use the unscheduled times to work ahead. Take break, keep momentum, reward yourself. Just say no, have a life, use calendar planner and daily to-do list. These are the few factors that help us to be studying more efficient and manage the time. A short break every hour is effective in helping the students to recharge the energy and prevent a lot of the distractions such as multitasking. Don't try to do few jobs in a certain amount of time. This will not give the successful to you, or maybe you'll think a lot of the distractions among them, and will slow you down also. And never schedule your day or week so full of the work and the study, and try to give yourself to talk to your family or talk to your friends or do some beneficial activities such as go jogging and do some sport also. And just say no. Try to dare to make some rejections to your friends' invitations. If you think that your friend's invitation will cause you cannot focus on your others' important matters. And have a life is the importance. You're setting your schedule because you need to balance your time and balance your work and your leisures. Don't try to pack yourself in the schedule with full amount of the work. The leisure is also important. And now, let us move on to battling the procrastination. The procrastination is the way of thinking that lets one put off doing something that should be done now. This procrastination can happen to anyone's at any time. It's like the voice inside your heart. This is a certain kinds of the psychological thinking skills. They'll keep coming with a lot of the ideas that will disturb you others than you're doing your important matters. The procrastination is very powerful. Some people's better is daily, or some people's better is occasionally. It depends your thinking, your way of the thinking. And there are a lot of the reasons why the people choose to procrastinate. For example, they like to keep dreaming, or they are willing to do other tasks other than the important matters, or maybe they are just relaxed attitude. They use most of the time to keep procrastinate, and we know that procrastination is a thief of time, and if you keep procrastinate, finally all of the work will come in a failure. So by battling these procrastinations, we can start to making a calendar planners and to-do list. Calendar planners and to-do lists are effective ways to organize your time. But I trust that most of the students do not have this habit. As I try to, I take myself as an example, I try to make the calendar and the daily to-do list. For example, in the day, I need to do what, I need to finish what study, I need to finish what assignments, I need to attend what meeting. However, I can't do that because this may be some things that issues will happens you cannot estimate. However, some people will also try to do these calendar planners and to-do lists if they think that they really cannot manage the time very well. And calendars and the planners will help you to look ahead and write your important matter inside these planners. And now I will share some tips for the successful planning. Don't overdo the balance, the work and the leisure. Be realistic about time. Not pay too much attention. Put importance thing high, and don't make your list overwhelming. Because we one day already only have the 24 hours. So don't try to overdo and make yourself keep anxious about the time flows. In planning these calendar planners, you try to balance our time well, so that if you can make your study more efficient and also can have some leisures. And we do not pay too much attention in everything on the schedule. You make these calendar planners is make yourself more efficient, but it's not make yourself more negative value. Don't have a lot of negative values inside your heart. So we need to put the importance setting highs. Of course, we need to focus more on the important matters other than the unnecessary matters. So here are the tips for the successful planning. And last but not least, I will share some questions that you need to think outside the box. And the first, a punctual person is also a successful time manager. These three kinds of questions doesn't have an exactly answers. This depends on your ways of the thinking. A punctual person means that they were attending the class like 10 in the morning to the afternoon. Doesn't this mean that you are really successful in manage your time? Maybe you will just keep procrastinate in your studies. When you study, you keep looking at your phone. This is the different methods. So making a timetable is a key step to manage the time efficiently. For myself, it's true. But however, if you are the person you really good in organizing yourself, you don't need a timetable, also can manage your time efficiently. And wearing a watch is a good suggested habit in order to manage the time usage. This depends on the person. This depends on yourself. You wear watch is because you need to have a look on the time. But I don't think that most of the students will have this wearing watch habit. So, in conclusions, learn managing the time is an efficient pathway to getting efficient in your a lot of the important things such as the studies. And remember, balance your time in leisures and your work is the most important matter you need to be considered. Now I will pass my topic to my teammates. Thank you.
Okay, it's my turn now to conclude the points that presented by my team members. First of all, it's important to set a goal that is a short-term goal, mid-term goal, long-term goal, and be realistic and time-oriented and attainable. Set goals will help you to set your priorities and stay motivated. And the next is the attitude. Attitude is the most largest factor determining your success in life. And try to stay positive and surround yourself with positive people. And then planning ahead, following your plan is the essence of time management. Remember to book your space and your time according to your scheduled block of time to develop the best study habits. And remember to learning strategies to stay on track. And avoid distraction like the people and the technology. And the most also important is prevent procrastination. And plan time based on time personality after assessing how you typically use or free of time. And then use an academic weekly and daily planner to arrange your time. And start well ahead of deadline to avoid the last minute stress and the problem completing your works. And the last of all, the most important skill in your life is the time management technique. This will ensure your success in your life. As our topic says, we should get motivated and stay motivated, and secondly, we get organized, like the timetable, and lastly, we just keep moving forward and stay on track. And here are some activities. Keep your priorities straight and don't save some time for fun is a force, because you want to balance your leisure and your study times. Put a do not disturb sign on your door to avoid the interruption is a truth. You can choose your private place to study. And finally, plan your schedule with 2 hours of study time for each hour in class. It's true because according to the college success book, it suggests us to spend 2 hours of study time after each hour in class. And action speak louder than words. So we want to make an action list to review your progress on academic. The first, we want to set our goals. For example, I have a physiology exam in the next week, so I have 7 days to go to prepare my exam. But I have 6 chapters in physiology, so I set 1 chapter 1 day to finish my preparation. And I'm planning ahead, so I plan before 1 week and I prepare earlier. And I stay my attitude. I believe I can do my study very well. And I focus and motivation to study my physiology. And when I feel tired when I study, I will go to the outdoor activities like running or playing badminton, or choose your ways or relax, like shopping or cooking or play game. And after adjust yourself to the track, and you can choose your study space, your best study space. And like me, I choose library, because library, the atmosphere of library make me have the motivation to learning. And the time management is the most important, because you want to spend, you decide how many hours you spend on the 1 chapter you want to revise. And there are some quotes from the celebrity that I wish this will help you in your future life, that will motivate you. This Jack Canfield, that is the American author and motivation speaker. He said, successful people maintain a positive focus in life. No matter what is going around them, they stay focused on their past success rather than their past failures, and on the next action step they need to take to get them closer to the fulfillment of their goals, rather than all the other distractions that life presents to them. And I believe you guys all know this is the Hong Kong martial artist. This is the Bruce Lee. He said, life battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man. But sooner or later, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. So just believe in yourself. And finally, this in Usain Bolt is also called by the lightning bolt. She is a Jamaican sprinter, the famous world record sprinter. He said, kill them with success and bury them with a smile. So kill your fear of failures and bury them with your motivation and success. So that's all for our present today. Thank you for listening and wish you have a nice day.
Okay, thank you. The team did a pretty good job. They had good eye contact and good expression and emphasis, and some of the slides were maybe a little bit word heavy. Be careful not to create a conflict between what you're saying and what they think they need to read. You have too many words in a slide, that conflict occurs, and actually the audience sometimes can do neither one very good. They're trying to read, and then they can't listen, and then they try to listen, and they can't read. They're not sure what they're supposed to do. So be careful about text-heavy slides. That can be disruptive. I don't think I really have any follow-up comments on it. As the team mentioned, it correlates well with what Dr. Covey is teaching, what other things we've talked about. It just puts it into the college setting and helps you think about what you can do here. As I said, some of the things that Dr. Covey talks about are maybe aimed a little bit more to those who have already graduated. And this is aimed more towards what you're doing right here and now. And so that helps. This textbook helps us bring it back down to where you guys are at currently. And that's, I think, a good thing. So I'm going to turn off theirs. If I can get my mouse to work. There we go. Well, it thinks it wants to work sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. There we go. Okay, so today we're talking about Dr. Covey's third habit, think win-win. But it's also kind of goes beyond that a little bit in that this is the start of what he's talking about, the interdependent maturity, interdependent life. So the first three habits we talked about were all kind of like, he talks about achieving the private victory. The things that self-control, self-management, self-directed, those things are all kind of intrapersonal, what's inside of us. But now he's talking about once we've done that, and he does think that these go in order, that they do require, he says at one point that you can't really be real successful in your interdependent life with other people until you're successful with your intradependent or inner control and inner success until you've achieved the private victory, if you would. And so the first three habits create a foundation for the latter ones. And so as he starts talking about these latter three, he kind of sets a stage, and he talks about, for example, in our relationship with other people, we create an emotional bank account, he calls it. That bank account it represents the trust that people achieve or that we achieve with people. Do they trust us? And that trust is not necessarily trust in, will you honor a contract, but can we believe you? Do you have our success in mind? Can we entrust our future as an employee to you to make sure that we succeed, or are you totally self-absorbed? These are questions of trust. And so I think I'm going to go ahead. Actually, before we started, I did play one video. Some of you weren't here yet, but I know I don't have time to play all the videos. They will all be posted on Moodle, of course. But in the first video he was talking about some of the things we do to hurt our relationship with other people, if we're conflict-oriented and so forth. So those that were not here can watch that later. I think I will go ahead, though, and this one more specifically talks about the emotional bank account and this interpersonal maturity that we need to achieve in order to be successful with any of the interpersonal goals, the other three goals. The win-win, seek first to understand, then to be understood, and to synergize. Those are all, like I say, interpersonal goals, but they're all founded on this, they're all founded on principles, first off, and one of the things he points out is that if you aren't keeping the basic principles, the true principles of life, then basically you're probably not going to achieve trust. You're not going to have a strong emotional, interpersonal bank account, so to speak. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and watch this, or show this one first, and then we'll come back. I'm going to not make this part of our class video, but show it separately, and just so that if I put too many videos on my video, somebody will object, and then they won't show my video. So, and this one we're not going to. We'll give you the link on Moodle, but I'm not going to embed it within my mind. So, I'm going to end that and launch from my Word document.
Let me share with you a few examples of deposits and withdrawals into the emotional bank account.
The first and most important deposit: kindness and courtesy. The opposite, of course, would be unkindness and discourtesy. A second deposit: make and keep promises. The opposite of that is don't make promises, or make them and break them. To make and keep a promise essentially lets the other person know you can be counted upon. You're dependable. You will come through. There is no ability like dependability. You gave your word, you kept it. The circumstances changed, you kept it. The mood changed, you kept it. You come through. If the circumstances change to the point that it would be unwise to keep that promise, you immediately communicate and get them to understand those new circumstances so that they will relieve you of the promise. Be very careful before you ever make a promise, particularly if it's about a promise dealing with something that's terribly important to another, that is of jugular importance. Be very careful. The withdrawal is not to make any promises at all, because you create no hope. That is a withdrawal as well. Not as big, though, as making one in order to placate someone, to kind of have them be satisfied right now, and then to break it downstream because your mood has changed, or the circumstances have altered, or you just don't want to keep it, and you just made it because you wanted to please them at the time. Insecure people make promises freely and quickly all the time. Another very powerful deposit is the way that you manage expectations. You want to make sure that expectations are clear and unambiguous. Some people, particularly if they're rather immature and insecure, will read an expectation as a promise. So you have to be very explicit to manage expectations. If you sense that people implicitly are projecting expectations upon you, sometimes you have to say, let me clarify the expectations so that people are at peace. The withdrawal is to have unclear expectations, unidentified expectations, ambiguous expectations, unacknowledged expectations that lie implicit inside people. Our frustrations are a product of our expectations, and we control our expectations. Therefore, we indirectly control our frustration or our satisfaction. Another extremely powerful deposit strikes at such a deep tendency that many of us have, having to do with being a judge. I call this deposit loyalty to the absent. The withdrawal, of course, would be disloyalty and duplicity. Always be loyal to those who are not present. Speak about them as if they were present. If you're critical, the spirit is one of constructive criticism, one of helpfulness or understanding. You see, the moment the two of us sit and badmouth our supervisor here, what do you know I'm doing when there's a strain on our relationship? What am I doing? What do you think I'm doing? Well, if there's a strain on our relationship and I'm talking to him about you, what am I doing? Exactly. That he and I did about him. You see, it is not principle-centered. He knows it. He knows my tendency. So that when we speak about the one who is absent in a way that would show respect for him, even if we're critical of him, but in a constructive, positive way, what does he know I'm saying when visiting with him, who is critical of him? That I would do the same thing. In other words, if you want to retain those who are present, be loyal to those who are absent. Now, when the sun is shining and you sit and kind of badmouth somebody, it kind of unites you, doesn't it? Kind of cements your relationship because, see, you have a common enemy, as it were, or someone that you both agree on and you can tear into, see. Kind of unites you and you look for evidence, and then you have breaks and talk about the person and maybe even have lunch over that person's sins and share each other's stories. Make your mind up. And if you're into team building, if you're into culture building, if you're into family building, make a commitment to everybody. If there's any difficulty with another person, what do? Go directly to the person. You don't talk behind their back. I was fading this one time, complaining to the university president of the university that I was a visiting professor, complaining to the university president of the university that I was a visiting professor, such a bad housing situation, contrary to our agreement and expectation. And I was really cutting into the guy, his competency. And the president said, "Stephen, I'm so sorry to hear about this housing situation you're in. The housing director is such a fine, competent person. Why don't we have him come on over here and we'll solve the problem together?" I don't want to be involved. See, I didn't say that because that would be obviously so irresponsible. But that's how I felt inside. I don't want to talk to him. I want to talk about him. This president, he just was matter of fact and pleasant. And as the gentleman was coming across campus to the president's office, I was going through this internal dialogue. What have I got myself into now? I'm probably responsible for part of the miscommunication. Maybe we got what was agreed. I don't know what the situation is. Honestly, I was so humbled. By the time he arrived there, how are you? good to see the president could see my duplicity. I mean, 10 minutes before, what incompetence. There's just no carry through with the original commitment. And how are you? A double-minded person is unstable in all his ways. Duplicity. Another major deposit. If you blow any of the above, learn to apologize. The withdrawal is pride. Learn to apologize. I was wrong. That wasn't kind. I saw my son the other day, cutting at his little sister for cleaning up his desk. He had it all organized to do his project. Took him a long time. She came in, intending to help her brother, and organizes it, and cleans it up for him. She thought that was a deposit. See, to him it was a withdrawal. He starts really laying into her, and in the middle of his criticism, he cut himself. Oh. I should take my frustrations out on you. I'm just sorry. I know you meant well, and I watched that and I thought, that takes real presence. That takes real maturity, real respect, a lot of personal security. He can, in the middle of his anger, take control over it. The ability to apologize, to forget and forgive, to let go of resentment. One of the most liberating and freeing things possible. But it's also an enormous deposit to another person.
Thought I turned off the recorder, but it seems to be on again. I don't know what I did. Okay, anyway, I think those are general principles for interpersonal relationships. So they really go beyond any of those specific habits that he's talking about. It goes beyond win-win. It goes beyond seek first to understand, then to be understood. It goes beyond synergy. It's just general principles of interaction with other people that override and relate to all of them. And so that's why he kind of introduces that concept as he introduces this part of the book, is to help understand that if we don't keep these principles he was talking about, then we're going to fail probably in the habits that he's encouraging us to establish. So again, just kind of reviewing those, since I thought I turned off the video, maybe I didn't. First off, your promises. Don't make promises you won't keep, and if you do, if you have to, in fact, I was kind of taken back. My policy has always been I never make promises to anybody. He said that's actually withdrawal, not a deposit. If you refuse to make promises to people, they are left in this area of uncertainty. And I guess I have seen that in my life. I have always felt like there are so many things that happen in life, I don't want to make promises. So my policy has always been, for all of my life, the last 60 years or whatever, I don't make promises to anybody. And he's saying that's bad too, that I should make promises. But if I find that I can't keep a promise, then I need to talk to that person, explain, these are the circumstances, and will you release me from the promise? But there's the next thing he talked about was expectations. For example, my wife gets expectations. She considers expectations promises. So, for example, she wanted me to go with her to one of the to a Thailand island for vacation. I thought I could probably do it during this fall break, but it turned out I can't. Anyway, she was upset because she considered I broke a promise. Well, I know I didn't promise because I don't promise. But she still had that expectation. We had talked about it. I wanted to go. I still want to go. I can't go for a variety of reasons. Not some that I can't control even. For example, actually, I knew I had to do some research, but I figured, hey, I can do that research on an island as well as I can do that here. And so, I'll be frank, I was going to sneak out of town. I wasn't going to call it a vacation day because I was going to keep working. And so it's not a vacation, I'm not working. And a lot of people during the break, they're not going to show up to the office anyway. And so, in fact, a lot of them hardly show up to the office anytime. Even during the semester, they don't come to office. Some of my colleagues that are in my little office there, I see them like only in the evening they come to print stuff out. Other than that, they do it in their apartment. So I never see them anyway. So a lot of people don't keep real strict. I'm in the office more than just about anybody except our chairman. So my wife actually caused part of the problem that she called the chairman to make sure when the vacation was and told him that we were thinking about leaving town, and he reminded me I had no vacation days left. So it was actually her fault that I couldn't sneak out of town and do my research elsewhere. But anyway, nonetheless, that's an example, though, of where she had expectations, and she considers that expectation a promise. Even if I never promise, she still considered it a promise. So, you have to kind of manage your expectations, too. And I'm not going to get into any more into my personal life, but sometimes she's a little bit unrealistic in what she wants. She somehow considers a week in India when I did a thing there, and a month in America, and here she is in Malaysia. She doesn't have to work. Her family's in Kazakhstan. Now she's got to take a month to go to Kazakhstan, and that wasn't enough. She still needed me to go to this island. So anyway, I think that's a little bit overdoing it to be upset with me about. But anyway, the other one then, what you say in somebody's absence. That's a hard one. I think a lot of us, I think back on myself, I try not to do that, but I do that. I talk sometimes. I'm overcritical of people in their absence. And I do know, for example, if you were to, how do I put this? Let's say you, I'll put this in different terms. Let's say you were married to somebody, and you, for maybe even legitimate reasons, fall out of love with that person and don't think that marriage is going to work. And so while you're still married, you begin a relationship with somebody else who you intend to marry. And ultimately you do divorce and you do marry that other person. What do you think that second person is going to think if you're not around a lot or something? If if you have problems in your marriage, what she's going to think you're going to do if suddenly you have problems in your marriage? She's going to think, aha, he's looking for somebody else now. He did it because you did that with the last wife or husband or whatever. It's the same principle, is that when you talk about somebody, they will presume that if they're, like he said, maybe at the moment you're in good relationship with the person you're talking to. You're talking trash about your boss, and you and he are in good relationship, and you're getting going and talking about the boss, and you're both in agreement. But then, what if he becomes a boss? What are you going to think you're going to do? So these relationships get complicated, and they get more complicated if you don't restrain your tongue in this situation. So when you talk about somebody who's absent, talk about them as if they were still there. be constructive. You can make suggestions. You can suggest things that maybe the company should. If it is your CEO, for example, you could talk to your colleagues about things the company could do to improve. Maybe some things the CEO could do to improve, but do it in a constructive way. Things that, if you had a chance, you really would tell the CEO if you thought he would listen to you. And again, not just your relationship with the CEO, your relationship with anybody. Be careful what you say in their absence. The idea of his story about talking to the one guy about the housing director who didn't provide the housing he expected, and when he was visiting the university and stuff. The idea of, if you have a problem, go talk to the person who actually you think is causing the problem. Go talk to him. You don't have to be confrontational, but he could have gone to the housing director directly and said, my expectation when I accepted this position was that you would have room for not just me and my wife, but, we have, 4 children we're bringing with us, whatever. I'm not sure what his housing problem was, but since he had 9 children, I think maybe the housing problem was that he had children trying to stay in a small apartment, for example, and he thought he was going to get something bigger. I'm just imagining that might have been the problem. So, he could have just gone to the housing director directly and said, this doesn't fulfill what I expected, and this is really inconvenient for us. Is there anything we can do about it? Talk to him directly rather than complaining to his boss and possibly getting him in trouble or whatever. It doesn't bode well. And then, as he said, learn to apologize. We all make mistakes. We all probably break all of these rules. And when we break the rules and we get caught at it, like him getting caught on this housing thing, and he realizes he's breaking one of the principles that he believes in, then it's time to apologize. And maybe right then and there, here's the college president realizing he's being duplicitous, that suddenly he's being very friendly, the person he was upset with and all this. Now, if right in front of the college president even, he would tell the housing director, I apologize, I was being kind of critical of you with the president. I should have come and talked to you personally. But this is my situation. So he could have recovered from that failing right then and there by apologizing immediately and discussing the problem directly with the person that he had the problem with. And the other side of that, he didn't really distinguish it as separate, but the other side of that is what when somebody apologizes to you? What if somebody does something like this to you? Do you accept their apology? Do you forgive and forget? Or do you hold it against them forever? You hate them forever because they did something to you. I'm the first to admit that there are some people in some situations that you would have to say, I can forgive, I can't forget. Our relationship will not be the same in the future. And there are some legitimate reasons why, and there are some situations where that's actually, I believe, a necessary policy. I mean, if somebody were to, say you had children, you had a babysitter, and the babysitter did something that could potentially have hurt your child, you could forgive the babysitter. But you'd also be hesitant to trust the babysitter again with your child. And you would have reason to be concerned, and you'd have reason, to say, well, maybe we should get a different babysitter, because your child has been put in jeopardy. So there's some things sometimes you can't really forget, just out of necessity. You have to make decisions. Is this the best babysitter for our children? For our small children who left them in the house and she went out and talked to her friend on the phone, or we could even make a worse scenario. I mean, take it to the extreme. You hire a babysitter and they actually abuse your child physically, sexually perhaps. You forgive and forget. There's some situations you can't forget. You can forgive in a sense, but you're not going to have them be your babysitter anymore. So there's situations where that doesn't totally work. But in many, many, many situations, if somebody sincerely apologizes to you, that's the flip. If you want other people to accept your apology, then you need to accept their apology. It has to work both ways. I think Dr. Covey, in one of the videos I watched a long time ago, I think it was him that was saying that we want other people to judge us by our intentions, but we judge them by their actions. So in other words, if our intentions are good and we make a mistake, we want them to forgive us. But then we judge them by their actions, and we don't accept that that wasn't their intention. We judge them by their action, and we don't forgive them. We overlook their intention. They made a mistake. We only judge them by their action. But we want them to judge us by our intention. You understand what I'm saying? So that's part of this question as well. Okay. This is the quote up here. We have committed the golden rule to memory. Let us now commit it to life. The golden rule is a Christian concept, and some of you may not have heard it, but it basically do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That was a teaching of Jesus, and so that's called the golden rule, and just in case you haven't heard of that before. So what he's saying is basically, let's live that. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Let's make it part of their life, not just a part of our memory that Christians learn when they're little children going to church or whatever. Anyway, Dr. Covey calls this habit 4, win-win, the habit of interpersonal leadership, necessary because achievements are largely dependent on cooperative efforts with others. He says that win-win is based on the assumption that there is plenty for everyone and that success follows a cooperative approach more naturally than the confrontational win-lose approach. So again, he's saying this is the habit of highly effective people. It's not the habit of all, people that insist on winning and everybody else losing. It is possible you could actually some people might be extremely successful, taking a win-lose approach financially, extremely successful, by taking I win at everything, everybody else has to lose. But ultimately that's not the best way in life. And he says basically, you can actually win sometimes and lose in other ways. That ultimately in your life you're better off if you look at for the win-win, and you will ultimately, maybe it won't be better financially, but it'll certainly be better, you'll be happier if you live by this principle. So there's 6 paradigms that he talks about. Obviously the one is win-win, and that's the preferred, but it's not the only one. Some people actually do have some of these other paradigms. They are basically, and he has a lot of examples in his book. I'm not going to go into a lot of explanation here. But some people are just naturally kind of expect themselves to lose, for example. And so they have a lose-win mentality. That obviously is not good for them. Some people, like I say, are more common among so-called, at least financially successful people, is a win-lose. I win at everything. Everyone loses at everything. So the win mentality is basically your paradigm is, win at all costs, no matter what. Pretty close to the win-lose. But you'll accept a win-win. But whatever, it has to be a win for you. You can use different strategies. There are situations that are basically mutually destructive, which it would be a lose-lose situation. The last one is important. He talks quite a bit about the win or no deal thing. He says this can be done, this is actually a very important part of win-win, so that's not a negative, or it doesn't have to be. Win or no deal is basically, let's see if we can work this out. If our goals are different, if our needs are different, then maybe we can't. And so, if we can't win-win on this, then that's okay. We can maybe work on something together some other time. But if in this situation, our goals are different. For example, today I'm going to, well, no, not today, but in the next couple of days, I'm putting two people together that I know who have similar kind of parallel projects for language acquisition. One is emphasizing teaching English as a foreign language, and one is building a website where they're going to ultimately teach 300 different languages, and you'll be able to learn them in 300 different languages. So you'll be able to learn Mandarin in Ukrainian. You'll be able to learn, Malay in an African dialect or whatever. So it's quite an ambitious program. So I'm going to bring them together and see if there's common ground, if there's ways that they can help each other and create a win-win situation. But maybe they can't. And maybe they just, they don't know each other yet, but I think they're both extremely good friends of mine, and they're both extremely intelligent people. And so just building a relationship is probably a good thing. They could actually help each other informally, perhaps in some ways. They don't have to become business partners to get to know each other and value each other's friendship. So the possibility is very real that it'll be win or no deal. And that's fine. You don't take it personally. And actually, win and no deal is, you almost have to go into a win-win negotiation with that in mind. That's kind of what he says, is that set the expectation right from the start. I really think there's a possibility that we could create some synergy here and that we can have a win-win situation that'll help both of us. But if we can't, that's okay. Let's talk about it and see if this is mutually beneficial. If not, we go our separate ways and do our own thing. If you have somebody, and this is when I was listening to that, I was thinking of some negotiations I've been in. If you have somebody who's expecting to if they have a win-lose attitude, they want you to lose. They want to win and they want you to lose. If you set the expectation right off the bat that it's win or no deal, that destroys their attitude. That they understand you're going to walk away. And so it actually makes it more likely that they're going to pursue a win-win situation with you because you've established right from the start it's win-win or no deal. That's where you're going. And it's not I win or no deal. It's win-win or no deal. It should be. We will both benefit from this or we'll walk away. No problem. The win-win attitude is one that agreements and solutions are mutually beneficial. There is a belief in the third alternative that is a better alternative, perhaps, than either position. This is where now synergy may become involved also. We can brainstorm a little bit. So my two friends, one with parallel ideas, they can brainstorm together and they might come up, one may have one idea of how he wants to benefit from it. The other one may have a different idea of how he wants to benefit from a relationship. And they may start brainstorming and find out the third alternative that neither one of them thought about initially. Neither one of them came into the negotiations thinking about the third alternative. They didn't understand the third alternative until they started talking and brainstorming. Now they come up with a third alternative that is win-win. So even though that one had certain expectations, the other one had different expectations, now they come together and they come up with a third alternative. The win-lose is the idea is that you may use your position of power, your credentials, your possessions, your personality, but somehow you're going to get your way. The win-lose mentality is dysfunctional to interdependence. Is that person going to trust you? Even if he allows you to win and allows himself to lose, will he want to negotiate with you in the future? Will he want to do anything with you in the future? Will he want to try to synergize with you in the future? No, he knows how that works. So getting back to the trust issue, you've withdrawn too much out of your emotional bank account for that relationship to continue. If you've insisted on you winning and them losing, then it's not going to happen again. The lose-win people are quick to please or to appease people. In other words, so these people, They don't even sometimes understand what they're doing, but they're so desirous to keep everybody happy that they will be miserable. They're willing to be miserable so everybody else will be happy. That's their approach to life. And so they appease or please, they capitulate, they give up on everything. Many executives, managers, and parents oscillate between being win-lose and lose-win. So sometimes a parent, for example, and again, these habits Dr. Covey talks about are not just for the business world, they're also for the family life. And so, you're dealing with your children, and in some case, we're going to have my way. You're my child. I'm in charge. That's win-lose. And then they, wah, 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 wah. Okay, go ahead, do it. That's lose-win. Neither one's particularly good. And so, you need to try to establish a parent-child relationship that is not either one of those, if possible, and when possible. Ideally, always, but life is life. So it's one of the biggest challenges, by the way. When I had you asked you to watch a video by Dr. Christensen about how do you measure your life, and he talked about the family life and how much easier it is for people who are goal-driven to feel successful in business than it is in the family, because it may be 20 years before you feel like you've been a successful parent. And in fact, especially when they're going through the teenage years, very frequently you think, I really am a bad parent, or wow, this is not hardly worth it, whatever. You start getting kind of negative when they get kind of rebellious. And so, or it might be the other thing, it might be when they're toddlers. If you're a businessman and father, and you have a 2-year-old running around screaming and throwing fits and stuff, and you're just ready to pull out your hair if you have any. So anyway, then lose. We look at that. I didn't mean to go backwards or go forwards. Is a result of encounters between two win-lose individuals. So also the philosophy of highly dependent people. So they want to win so bad. You get two people who want to win, and they think the other person has to lose. And this isn't so much in a business negotiation like you're going to partner or something, but more in for example, a boss-employee relationship. The boss thinks he can demand what he wants, but the results are employees that don't give their whole effort to the company. They don't like the boss anymore. They don't trust the boss anymore. So really that's a lose-lose situation. The boss thinks he won. He didn't win. So he may think he won. He didn't win. He has a bunch of employees that don't like him, don't work hard, don't share the vision, are not as productive because he's a win-lose person. And so ultimately they both lose in that situation. The win person win at all costs. Other people don't matter. The most common approach in everyday negotiation, I win. If you win, that's beside the point. It's okay with me if you win. As long as I win, I don't care. So I'm going to win, you lose, you whatever, I win, no matter what. So that's probably the most common. They don't really care that you win, only that they win. That's the only thing that even matters. Win-win or go home. Even if someone offers you the win-lose option, don't accept it. It will hurt you in the long run. And so try to make sure they win. That the principle of human relations is important enough that you don't want them to accept a lose situation. You want to look after their best interests as well as your own. If you do that, how are they going to feel towards you? You have just made a major deposit in that emotional bank account, where if you ever want to go back to them and do something with them in the future, you think they're going to want to do something with you? If they were willing to lose and you said, no, I want to make sure that this is mutually beneficial, here, let's come up with a solution here to where it helps both of us, they're going to trust you with their lives. You just turned down a win-lose situation. You turned it down in order to come up with a win-win situation. Now that person's going to trust you a lot. That's a major deposit in that emotional bank account with that person. That trust account, if you would. So win-win solutions are synergistic. You may have to brainstorm. I say these last three are very intertwined. It's kind of hard to take them in order. They might have a logical order to them, but they're so intertwined that it's hard to talk about win-win without talking about empathetic listening, for example. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. How do you seek a win-win situation if you aren't an empathetic listener? And how can you do it if you aren't looking for synergy? You don't believe in that third option. That third option is part of synergy. So these last three principles get intertwined a lot. And again, no deal. There's no expectations, no performance. Values and goals are going in opposite directions, so that's okay. We'll maybe find something we can partner on in the future, but looks like this one isn't of mutual benefit. So let's go on with our lives. So always be open, be honest, try to understand the issue, underline the positions. Do I understand you correctly? This is what you want. You make sure you understand each other. Again, that's where it goes into habit 5. If you may want to state what your understanding is of their position, so they can correct you if you're wrong, because you might be wrong. Maybe in listening to them, you came up with a misimpression of what they expect out of this relationship. And so you're ready to cut it off, no deal, but by expressing it and helping to summarize your understanding of the situation, perhaps you find that you had a misimpression, that maybe that there is still room to make it work. So there's 5 dimensions of win-win: character, relationship, agreements, supportive system, processes. We're running out of time, so there is another video here to watch, but you'll have to watch that on, it's just 6 minutes long, but that will run us totally out of time, and I think I'll do a quick summary myself of what they're talking about. So character, for example, is the foundation of win-win. Integrity, the value we place in ourselves, the maturity, the balance between courage and consideration, that abundance mentality, that there's plenty out there for everybody. You don't have to lose for me to win. There is plenty for both of us to win. That you are committed to win-win on the basis of those eternal principles that Dr. Covey talks about, of fairness and honesty and integrity and maturity and those sorts of things, that we will make this work if it's intended, if that's our destiny. So this one is kind of word heavy, but it gives you a little more detail on what he's thinking. Character is the foundation of win-win, and everything else builds on that foundation. There are 3 character traits essential to the win-win paradigm. Integrity, as we clearly identify our values and proactively organize and execute around those values on a daily basis. We develop self-awareness and independent will by making and keeping meaningful promises and commitments, so people can trust us. Maturity is the balance between courage and consideration. If people can express his feelings, if a person can express his feelings and convictions and with courage balanced with consideration for the feelings and convictions of the other person, he is mature, particularly if the issues is very important to both parties. Abundance mentality, as I said, the 3rd character trait is essential to the win-win, the abundant mentality that there's plenty for everybody. In relationships, courtesy, respect, appreciation for the other person, and his point of view. Again, this goes back to being willing to listen to their perspective, before you ask them to listen to yours, and to express your position courteously, calmly, and not in a competitive or angry sort of fashion. I'm not, whatever. You're expressing this courtesy and respect throughout your discussions. Agreements cover a wide scope of independent action. This is our desired results. So you can kind of work down this scale. What do we both want out of this? Under what circumstances, guidelines? What are the resources that we can share, that we possess separately that we could share? How are we going to be accountable for our action in this relationship? How are we accountable for doing what we promised to do? And then the consequences. If we do what we have agreed to do, what will be hopefully positive consequences? And what will be consequences if we don't do what we promised to do? If we can't, not necessarily because you're a bad person or I'm a bad person, but something happens where we can't fulfill our promises. Then what are the consequences? What do we do about it? And talk about that rationally and unemotionally, and you have a potential of coming up with an acceptable win-win agreement. Supportive systems, reward systems must reflect the values of the mission statement. So what is it? What is our mutual goal if we're going to do something mutually? How are how are our rewards tied to our accomplishing this mission? Are they in line with each other? Processes. See the problem from another point of view. Identify the issues and concerns involved. Determine the results would constitute a fully acceptable solution. Identify possible new options to achieve those results. Again, basically it's the process of going through the agreements, the potential agreements. We analyze stuff here, and so the process of going through those routinely until we see if we have a win-win situation. Here's also another 6-minute video that will help you understand this principle more, that we posted to Moodle. And this one, again, these three kind of interact with each other, these three principles of interpersonal success. This one, it's a key part of win-win, but it's also about synergy. So I think it's a short one also. I'm going to put it also on Moodle for you to watch. But it could just as easily be held and shared with you when we talk about synergy. But again, all these principles interact. And as he mentioned, as you're talking to people seeking win-win situations, that third alternative is an important option. The third alternative that neither one of you have thought about yet. And so that comes out of synergy. So if you have, if part of your negotiations, part of your discussions become brainstorming, how do we both win-win? How do we accomplish what we both want to accomplish? Now that's synergy. So that's a different habit, but nonetheless it's an important habit for this principle, to make this principle work, this habit work of win-win. You need to look sometimes for that third alternative, which is the product of synergy. So the three of them totally interact as we talk about them, understand them separately, but also understand that in interpersonal relationships, they all work together simultaneously. They aren't separate in a sense. They are totally intertwined. I wonder sometimes, we were talking about the emotional bank account, why he didn't make that another habit, because he actually did not talk about that as a separate habit. That is a principle on which all the other habits are based, or the other interpersonal habits are based. And so he explained that without linking it to any one of the habits or making it a separate habit. He just needed it to be a fundamental understanding that we basically, with every person we're in contact with, we have an emotional bank account that we make deposits to and then we make withdrawals from. And when we have a positive relationship with them, that's like a deposit. When we do something, we betray their trust, break a promise, break their expectation, whatever that might be, then we're withdrawing from that bank account. And if that bank account is in the red, if it's a negative bank account, we can't have very high expectations at that moment in that relationship. That person doesn't trust us. They don't want to work with us. And so we want to make sure that our relationships, all of these bank accounts, all these emotional bank accounts are in the black. They're all well established. And then we can be very successful in a relationship with all these people. They have to trust us. They have to feel good about us, or these other habits that he's talking about don't work. There's no win-win if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't trust you. There's no, seeking first to understand, then to be understood may help create a positive, put that bank account into the black. So it might help. That itself might help. And all these three principles, I guess, would help put that bank account in the black. But if it starts in the red, you may never get a chance to use these other principles, these other habits, to put them into the black, to help it go further into the black, because you've already done something in that relationship to damage it to such a degree that they don't want to talk to you. They don't want to listen to you. And so that may be going back to time to apologize and try that apology. Maybe there's some things you can do to put that account back into the black before you have any hope of utilizing or benefiting from these other habits. You've got to get that account into the black. So they're foundational principles when we talk about an emotional bank account. Again, whether he should have made it a separate habit or whatever, I don't know. He wrote the book, not my book. So this one will also go on the internet. I will stop that. Just going to go to our Moodle site real quick, make sure where we're at. That's a good way you guys should be going there frequently to make sure you're on top of stuff. It's good for me also. Okay. Okay, so we're in week 7. We've had our presentation for the week. So next week will be the 3rd chapter. Whoever's that chapter, hope you guys will be prepared for that. The first 2 teams have done a good job. We have a 10% quiz here on tonight, right? Hopefully you got my message on that. I sent that out. So tonight there are 20 questions. Your time schedule is actually between 8 and 9:05. Once you open it, you have 20 minutes, to answer your questions. You have 30 minutes, I believe, right? 30 minutes. Yeah, you have 20 questions, 30 minutes. I think that's plenty of time, but again, what I'm trying to do, what I have to do with online quizzes and tests is to make it hard for people to cheat. And so it's 30 minutes. I should be plenty of time for you to do it yourself, not plenty of time for you to get together if you were inclined to do that. Not to say I'm not projecting this. Not to say anybody would do that, but as a teacher, I have to think that somebody could. Because obviously some people do. You should all know also that it would actually do almost no good for you to all get together. The system allows me, and what I did do was I went into this and I told the system, you choose the 20 questions. So all of you are going to get different 20 questions. There are something like, I can't remember, 60 to 70 questions that we've asked during the semester. And so it could be any of those questions. It's going to be totally random selection. So none of you are going to get the same none of you are going to get the same quiz. You may have some questions that are the same, but by the time, and then even then, the questions won't be in the same order. So any questions that you have in this would not be in the same order as somebody else's, and the answers will be in a different order. So you have different questions, different order of questions, and a different order of answers within the question. So that makes it very hard to cheat unless you have a lot of time to work at it. So that's why the Moodle system is pretty handy that way, that it allows us to have a reasonable expectation that people do their own work. Especially so when the participation quizzes, you all have the same questions. They may come out in a different order. They might come out in the answers may come out in a different order. But in the participation quizzes, you all have the same questions. But now all those questions are now available for the 10% quiz. So you've had a chance anyway to see all the questions. In most cases, if not every case, I did not tell you the answers. You saw the questions, and you saw how well you did on those questions. So you had a chance to go back and try to figure out what you did wrong when you saw that you missed some. And now you're going to get the very same questions. So, if you've worked at this a little bit, you can get a very good grade. And guess what? When you have a final exam, they're all going to be the same questions. So if you study hard in the participation quizzes, even though they're worth almost nothing, that sets you up to be successful in the 10% quizzes and in the final exam. So most of your, I don't like memory-based education, but in this one I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. Once you see the questions, you have a chance to, if you got some wrong, go back and study again and learn the right answers. And so by the time you get to the final, you could all get A's if you work at it. I can't make it too easy. I don't want you to just memorize answers. I want you to have to go look, watch the videos and read the stuff and know the answers because you know the context of the answers. And so they have some meaning to you. So that's why I don't give you the answers to the questions in the participation quizzes, because you're going to see them again and again. And it's up to you then to figure out what you did wrong and learn the material. So I'm trying to make the questions it's hard to make questions exactly purposeful for eternity. In every case, we have to come up with a certain amount of questions. But hopefully in the stuff you're learning, it'll help you reinforce principles that will be valuable to you in the future. And anyway, meanwhile, your writing and your presentations will give you some skills that actually are of longer lasting value to you. Any questions on that? So hopefully there won't be problems tonight. I will try to be available actually in my office until the end of that. So in case somebody has a problem, you have my phone number on the syllabus, you have my email, and let me know immediately if you run into a problem. Hopefully our system, I've had some large exams with my history class, and they didn't have any trouble. So I don't anticipate any trouble, but let me know if there's a problem. Okay, any questions? Okay, well, good luck with it. I think you'll all do well. Thank you.